Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our startup panel. I have the pleasure and honor to welcome 5 guests that are heavily involved in the topic startup. And yeah, I think I will just hand over the mic and give everyone a typical elevator pitch, because I think they are used to this.
Okay, hey, my name is Andreas Dunch. I'm from Hamburg, Germany, and I founded a company who's working with drones. Nothing unusual in those times, but we simply asked the question, how can we empower businesses to actually use this stuff for business purposes and earn money with it? And therefore, we developed a data hub, what we actually weren't even planning on doing, but it was just a necessity when we looked at the market and the environment, and we simply do a lot of geocoding and develop a product that enables businesses to dispatch their drone projects amongst each other. So that's simply stuff that we're working on.
Hello, I'm Henry. I'm the founder of a company called Building 10. We're an early stage investor, investing typically as the very first investor in startups, tech startups here in Berlin. We co-founded a few companies. Our biggest success was the exit of Quando, a restaurant reservation platform last year that we sold to Japan for 200 million. And we recently started CarJump, a car sharing aggregator, at the beginning of last year, and invested in a logistics company. And maybe we hear about some exciting new ideas today.
Thanks. I'm Tom. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm one of the founders of Door to Door, which is a Berlin-based tech company, a startup also. Some of you might have seen my dear colleague Uli on stage, who had the pleasure to talk to you already. What we are doing is we are building a platform for on-demand public transportation. What does that mean? It means that you have a public transport system that you can just by the push of a button ask for bringing a service to your doorstep, and you enter a vehicle and it brings you to your very destination. And how do we do that? We do that with a platform that consists of various components. One of the recent examples that we have launched here in Berlin is the Alligator Shuttle. We have one vehicle outside waiting, at least for demo purposes. So have a look. It's active Friday, Saturday night, and it's a shared experience, a minibus that goes from A to B in the city and is really providing a convenient experience. And at the same time, it's very sustainable because the rides are shared. And we provide the technology to the transport companies of the cities around the world, so if they want to have an answer to Uber and the other guys, they just come to us and we provide it on a silver tablet to them.
Hey, I'm Philip. I started a company called Scobbler, which was doing OpenStreetMap-based navigation and was based out of Berlin. And I sold that company 2.5 years ago to Telenav, and currently I'm the engineering VP for Telenav, in charge of the offices which we have in Europe, China, and Silicon Valley. So I'm now half of my time based in the valley and the other half mostly in the airplane. And we're doing, starting with navigation software. So we're one of the biggest providers of navigation software, providing it for Ford, GM, and a few others, and are also heavily involved into autonomous driving and especially making maps for those autonomous vehicles.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Axel Sommer. I'm working for Deutsche Bahn at DB Mindbox. DB Mindbox is, the main goal is to bring new ideas into Deutsche Bahn, especially to digitize our infrastructure. And yeah, we have an accelerator in the DB Mindbox, and we are looking for new startups.
Thank you. Maybe we start with one of the most common questions nowadays. I mean, who has been with Wherecamp in the recent years has been seen that is fantastically growing as such the startup scene is. So maybe many people nowadays also asking, okay, can I do a startup? Can I create one? From your experience in creating startups, investing, and also in selling startups, right? What would be your number one reason nowadays to create a startup in Berlin and not everywhere else? So except London, Barcelona, San Francisco, etc. Maybe Tom, you will start?
Yes, I'd love to, because in fact I did found a startup here in Berlin. And as much as you have to look at that some spots of the world are very relevant for some industries also, I'd like to talk personally, looking at it from a company that's active in mobility and the automotive sector. Now, what I observe is that this very industry is at the tipping point of a change that no one of us has experienced. You know, it's really like when the car was invented, with all the technology and the software technology and the autonomous vehicle technologies that we are looking at, that's going to come to life within the next years, it's going to change like really fully. It's going to be such a dramatic change that we cannot even imagine how much this is going to be. And if you imagine what you want to achieve as a founder of a company, you know, you want to have impact, you want to make a difference, you want to have the right people around you on that ride, which comes at a lot of costs also, so it's not easy. So you have to find something that you're really passionate for, and you have the right people at your left and right side to do that. And now doing that from Berlin is great for two reasons. Number one is attracting international talent. You can do that from Berlin because the city provides a very nice environment for people from all over the world. Secondly, the very industry I just mentioned, the automotive industry, I mean, there are many players, relevant ones, based in Germany. So you are in a setting where you can not only observe, but literally follow, you can smell it, you can see it, how this industry, you know, has this tectonic movements. And when you meet those guys from Volkswagen and Daimler on these conferences like this, you feel that you are up to something with your startup, you know? I mean, there are thousands of opportunities, but you feel an industry that goes upside down. This is a perfect environment where you want to be as a founder. And this is why it's so great to do that here in Berlin. And I'd like to encourage everyone, actually, who has this, you know, little thought in the back of your head, do it, as we say in the company.
For me, there's only one reason to come to Berlin. We are here. Our company is here. Join us. Of course, there are other reasons too. I mean, look in Europe. There are not so many hotspots in Europe that are attractive enough. I think lots of you saw the recent pitch of the Pitch Doctor about Berlin. This is something I can at least highly recommend to all of you. I mean, Silicon Valley is too expensive. It's really hard to hire affordable engineers there. Berlin has not so many distractions. I mean, the weather is not that nice. You spend a lot of time inside, so have a lot of time working, of course. And it's affordable. I mean, not in Berlin Mitte anymore, but in the suburban areas you might still find some affordable flats for your employees. So it's a good environment to start a company, for sure.
Well, we're not a Berlin-based company, not yet. The reason why we incorporated in Hamburg was simply because Hamburg is the third biggest city for aviation in the world after Seattle and Toulouse. And for us in the aviation industry, we just had the biggest network and biggest benefits to start off with. And then when you take a look at different cities, you find Berlin has a great ecosystem, enthusiastic, smart people, international city, and you actually can meet a lot of qualified young people who have the ambition to actually go on a mission with you to create something that matters. And it's easy to find in Berlin, and that's why I like it inside the Berlin startup ecosystem. And it's simply, Berlin became a tech hub. So you have great developers, you have simply great people that know what they're doing. And that's really hard to find if you compare it in other cities. And Berlin, at this point in time, just gets a lot of traffic.
That's for sure. And maybe for someone who has the experience of starting someone in Berlin, right, Philip? How would it feel?
Yeah, so I can share now from being mostly in Silicon Valley. So I think a lot of the things that were said were very right. So, I mean, to just put into perspective is like in Silicon Valley, the average engineering cost fully loaded is about $300,000 a year. So that's like more than twice what you will pay in Berlin. Of some of the other guys like are against that, maybe they hire higher levels, so then it's good. More than twice, see, they're cheap. So maybe you shouldn't work for that guy. So I think that's like one of the key reasons, right, that you can like get a lot of more talent. So that's always the key thing for a startup. I think the second thing, which was also mentioned, is like the automotive industry in Germany is huge, right? I mean, in Berlin, you can hire now a lot of dissatisfied guys from here and other companies. So I think there's like a massive industry of people who want to work like from old school geo companies to like more like neo-informatic companies, so it's like neo-geography companies. So I think this is a massive talent pool which you have here. And let's face it, I mean, Germany is an automotive country, so the amount of talent that you have is like unrivaled to anywhere else. And I mean, I think the other thing which was mentioned, I mean, if you don't like to pay 50 euro per square meter for your apartment, then I think Berlin is still nice. Even in the most central spot, you won't find anything that's even like half the cost than San Francisco, so you can definitely trust me with that. And also the weather in San Francisco really sucks, so I don't agree that the weather is nice in California. It's maybe true for the rest of California, but not for San Francisco. So I think, again, like summarizing that in all seriousness, like, I mean, Berlin is like, especially if you want to like work in location, it has really become a hub, right? So the amount of companies and the talent and also the network among the companies that meet, I mean, I think like Tom can say very well, there's like a lot of the old Gate 5 guys which start new things and so on, and like a lot of them basically is like a network of both founders that can advise, help, venture capital, that like angel investments for people that understand the industry. So I think Berlin is really like the center which has the highest density of like location startups.
Wow. So first of all, I haven't thought about that question, but I live near Frankfurt, and if I were a startup, I would definitely move to Berlin. I think it's the ecosystem here is perfect. And everything that rules Germany started from here, I think. So, yeah, I think Berlin is the right way. It's the right place to start.
Okay, a lot of advertisement for Berlin, great. So I think nowadays also, I mean, it was also one of the topics here of this Wherecamp is geo-IT. We are in the GIT Association had tried to formalize what it means. Actually, we stuck because I think everyone has a different perception of what it means. I just want to give it in the round. What is your understanding of GIT, and whatever you understand of it, how did this kind of technology help you disrupt the business that you are in? Maybe, yeah, I've go to Mindbox.
Oh, it's a complex question. Geo-IT and disrupting the business. Yeah, I think I'm thinking a little bit. I think we find disruptions anyway, especially if you're working for a transportation company as Deutsche Bahn. Yeah, to get between us and the customer is very easy. You need a business model, you need data, and then you can challenge us, yeah. So, but what we think is also there's a chance to get in contact with these ideas and with these startups, and that's one reason why we do the acceleration, and to know about these ideas and maybe about new business models.
So I think I don't know anything else than geo-IT, so I can't really differentiate it. I can't give you a good definition. But in terms of the true disruption, what I can say is I think that nowadays you don't need to be a geo-IT specialist in order to use it, right? So I think like if I look back like 10 years, then you needed to hire like all these experts. And nowadays, if I want to program an Uber app, I can do this all with Android native APIs. I mean, it's just like one API call to like get the location, another API call to render a map. I can send it to the backend, process it with like CartoDB. So I think right now, like a single developer sitting in a garage can program like an app like Uber, right? I mean, like doing the operations behind it is very complex. So I think that's the problem. But just like the geo-IT stack has been commoditized in a way that it's like available like as part of like a standard development stack. I mean, as easy as a browser or so on, right? So right now, if you want to build a website, you don't need to build a browser engine, and the same is like true for GeoIT, right? If you want to build a company that uses Geo, you don't need to build the whole stack. So I think this is the true disruption, that now there's like, of course there's people who need to build the stack, right? Like companies like Telenav or Mapbox or Carto or here. So we need to still build the stack, but like the vast disruption is that 99% of the people who use the stuff, they're not specialists in the field, and that's where the true disruption comes, in my opinion.
Valid point. Other opinions, Well?
Yeah, I'd like to answer with looking at the observation I have why a GIS developer, geo-engineers join our company, and we have a fantastic team. We are lucky enough to have that fantastic team. And I think it is very much about the impact that they see that they can have with the skills and the techniques that they have adopted at universities like this one. So they carefully look at an environment where they can really make that difference and be disruptive. And the vision of our company is to get the private car out of the cities, right? That there's no need anymore to have any individual car. So that is as disruptive as it gets, I would say. And every day, the team of GIS developers, as much as the other guys of the company, work on that specific goal. And every time we have a navigator shuttle out there, it's happening. There's one ride with a car less in this world. And I think this is like really all the motivation you need to use something that you have adapted at class, at school, at university, and to go into that environment and to then apply it. And to go home every night and say, yeah, well, I've contributed a bit again today. This is how you can, as I said, smell that disruption happening.
So I can only agree with Philip about this. Like 10 or 15 years ago, this was all magic that happened at Gate 5 and other companies. Now it's a pure commodity from my perspective. So whenever a startup comes to us and talks about GeoIT, we will still invite them, but we expect that they build a platform on this, based on this. So if they only have a map or something, then it's not something special from our perspective, or layer on a map, this is not so special. There must be something which enables them to be a platform where others can build services upon. So this is what we look at from an investor's perspective. So when we talked, for example, to Andreas about his idea, we were a little bit interested in it, because it gives GIT the third dimension, basically. So maybe you can explain a little bit about it.
Yeah, when we started developing our product, we never thought about using or that we become a GeoIT company. It was just a necessity that we, like for the reason that Philip pointed out, is it's an enhancement for your product. Most of it is open source nowadays, so you can basically start from scratch using it. You don't have to be a specialist in it, and you can just take it as a part of your product. It's a tool that enhances your product that you build upon. So it's in the product that we develop, it's a layer that you work upon. And we are developing operational software, and for us, also the GeoIT is not only solving the problem of where, it also solves the problem of when and how. And this adds a lot of functionalities to your product. And I think another disruptional asset that GeoIT is producing is that it is spreading across all industries, and you can actually take it and put it on every product that's out there, not just about the third dimension, but for us it's just a necessity to say, okay, we need to know where your device is at, you need to know your navigation, you need to know your rules and regulations that apply. So we just build upon that to actually build the operation out of it.
Maybe one more comment about GeoIT. What's still interesting, even though it's a commodity, the whole mapping technology is still in the hand of, let's say, 3 or 4 companies worldwide. Yeah? One of them being Google. The other one is here, which is now the automotive consortium. Then there's, I don't know, you got TomTom? Yeah, you're right. So, and that's about it. OpenStreetMaps, maybe to mention another platform. So even though it's a commodity, the mapping technology is still in the hand of a few players. So the question would be, what are these few players doing with the technology they have their hands on? For sure they will use it, and for sure they will make a ton of money with it. I have no exact plan what they do with it, but you sound like you know it.
Yeah, I think this is a perfect cliffhanger. Thanks, Henry, because my next question is actually about open data. That was one of the key topics we discussed also today. And as we heard, what was the common phrase? Open means less closed or not entirely closed. Yeah, I like that term. I would ask in the round, and maybe start with the leader of the pack, Philip, what means open data to you, and what are your plans in the future to, make it accessible to everyone?
I mean, open data for me, open data was like OpenStreetMap for us, right? Which was what the entire reason why Scobler existed back then, right? So when we started the company, we had a very simple theory. So we had looked at the navigation market and seen, like, first was the embedded car navigation market. Those systems cost back in the day 2,000 euros and had about 3% adoption. Then there was like the PNDs, the TomToms, which cost like 200 euros and they had like 20 to 30% adoption. And our theory was that, like, if you build smartphone navigation, then it costs 20 euros, then you can get 100% adoption. Unfortunately, Google later thought that it should be 0 euros instead of 20 euros, so we were a little bit wrong on that. But basically, like, originally we tried to work with, like, Here and TomTom, and then said, like, we want to do a cheap smartphone navigation. We said, like, actually, like 8 euros. And they said, like, no ways, guys, right? Our license fee costs like 15, 20 euros, and then there's no margin for us to be made, no 30% for Apple. So then we, like, basically took OpenStreetMap and went out and, like, built this on open technology, right? And that for us meant pure freedom, that we don't rely in the hands of these few platforms, as you said, right? So because it's just a few platforms and they can control the pricing, right? It's not a monopoly, but it's like a duopoly, because there's only two, like, Google is not licensing the data, they just give you the maps as like a full product, and then there's only TomTom and Here give you the data. So for us, really, open data meant that we could follow our business model without, like, relying on those guys. So that was very, very critical. And I think that's like what we see, like a lot of the innovations lately are created on that, right? If you look at like Carto, if you look at a lot of the other things, like, I mean, even companies like Uber use extensively like OpenStreetMap and other open data sources. So if you look at the most recent innovations, like almost all of those companies use some form of open data, and without them they just couldn't build it, because it's just like getting geographic data for the world costs like billions, right? I mean, just like a mapping company puts like 100 million a year just to refresh a continent like Europe, right? So there's no startup in the world who can afford like to put in 100 million a year just to build a base map, right? It's just completely unaffordable. So that's why like open data is like the fuel for many, many of those startups.
Yes, so for me, open means open, so accessible and usable for everyone. And I think there's a great chance to open up the data. You said it's a fuel for everything. I think so. And it's really a good chance to, what we think is at Deutsche Bahn, we opened up a lot of our data, and to use it in OSM or for everyone who wants to do something with the data. Also if there's for commercial use. And we think it's a good win-win situation, because we are convinced that with this data something could be done, something could be improved for our customers, or even we get more customers on the track. And I think that's a win-win situation.
Yeah, let me start by providing an example from a couple of years ago. When we started building the product, we first implemented supply data, so data of existing transport services, let's say the BVG, right? So timetables and stations and stuff like that. So naive as we were, and you have to be naive as a founder, we went there and said, hey, can we have your data? We want to build this product. And they literally kicked us out, right? They were like, no, this is our data. We are the only ones who used to print these books, with all the timetables in it. So why should there be anyone else than us who makes use of a timetable? That was a couple of years ago, and we see, and you mentioned Deutsche Bahn also as an example, that this has changed now. Data of timetables, of stations, even real-time information for public transit becomes available to a larger audience, and we see a variety of applications and innovations and business models based on that. And that's really cool to see that it's happening. It's still a little, we are still a little behind here in Germany, I have to say, on international levels. This is our usual way of being, you know, shy and reluctant and risk-averse, so let's get that out. But this is like one example, like one side of the story. The other is, of course, that we use many tools with open data. We look at companies like Mapbox, who are doing a great job based on OpenStreetMap, and show, and that's what I love about that company, that even with Google and here and all these players, there is a lot of room for innovation in that industry. You know, that someone like Mapbox can really say we make a difference for customization of maps and other products in this regard. And we ourselves try to contribute to that too. We have crowdsourced some data in Africa, for example, in Dar es Salaam, where we put the dollars. These are kind of minibuses, a little like the alligator shuttle, you know, a bus, a small bus that goes from A to B in a city. Dar es Salaam is the capital of Tanzania. So where these buses go, we provide via OpenStreetMap now to the community, you know, and this is like it's a give and take, and I think that's very important to embrace also, that the community can only function if it's a constant way of not only absorbing, but of course, you know, providing back.
For me, there are two kinds of open data. First one is real open data, like OpenStreetMap, so it's a project which is open to the public and there's no real commercial interest behind it. The second kind of open data is the open data that all large corporations provide, like interfaces where you can plug in and get some data out. This is of course nice because you can build own services on top of it, but the formula for Google or Facebook is that if you build services on top of the Facebook or Google platform, then you will of course help the Google or Facebook platform first, and then second you help your own startup or your own idea. Both is totally fine, but just be aware that most of the times they will be more successful than you. Even if your app is the greatest app on the planet and you put it in the Apple App Store, again, open data, they give you open access to the App Store, then they make 30% of all the revenues you generate. So open is great. The real open is the best, of course, yeah, if possible. But unfortunately, the real open data don't have a commercial stakeholder, which means they're not that valuable. That's why most of us in the room are using the Google Maps API for their services, because it's a commercial interest behind it, but it's maybe also the best API.
For me, open data is also a source, a simple source for product development. When you have your idea and you start working on your product, and the challenges you face or that we face were just, okay, we need a lot of data. We need airspace data. We need ground data. We need private property data. We need way more data than in a two-dimensional map, because any flight that's below 500 feet in the air is affected automatically by the ground. So due to security reasons, due to weather reasons, you have more effects on the devices that are in the air, and therefore we just need more data. So to start up with, we were basically thinking, okay, where do we get the data from? And the data is out there. You can buy any data in the world, basically. When we were on the InterGeo 2 weeks ago, you can, like you said, you can buy any data in the world and spend billions of dollars for it. And for us, the open data, the real open data, is just a simple source we can use for our proof of concept. And once we go on and we said, okay, it's possible, and we implemented that feature, then you can actually think, okay, is the data that we use critical for our product success? Is it, or do we need better data from a different source, from a official source? And to give you two examples, when we started working with the aerospace data, we used OpenIP, that's aeronautical information that is open. And these are actually more precise than the official airspace data that's coming from German flight control, because the community is working on that and actually is below 30 meters, while official airspace data from the authorities that we actually bought because it's critical for us. So we put the layers upon it and it actually enhanced the product. And it didn't cost us that much to start off with. So for us, it's just a simple source for starting at the early stage and then go on in product development and see what's critical. And that's simply what we do.
Thanks a lot. So considering that data is probably the fuel for your startup vehicle, then obviously technology is the engine. We have today discussed a lot about some trends in there. I mean, not necessarily linked only to GeoIT. There's AI, there's robotics, there's also, this big data thing. I think from 2017 and onwards, I mean, what is your thinking, let's say, in terms of technology trends that you might also recommend to someone who has now the idea to create a startup? Where do you would like to put your focus on? Maybe.
I mean, if I hear words like AI and big data and autonomous something, that's the bullshit bingo that happens in our pitch room at least 3 times a day. Yeah? So the first question that we ask the founders is that they should please explain us what they mean. And since some of them are business founders, they can't. This is really bad. So if this is all real, we like it. Most of the times it's just bullshit bingo to get the money out of the investor. So in terms of trends, there's one big thing that I think about a lot, but it's not a real startup trend. It's a let's say society trend, which is singularity. I mean, I think very soon the point will come where the machines are really smart. I mean, AI, if somebody really does it, happens right now, and this is the tipping point where the machines become smarter than us, basically. And this is in the future, and then we can think about a lot of ideas. But if they're smarter than us anyway, then maybe they will create the ideas.
Yeah. So. Just because something is used as buzzwords, it doesn't mean it's bad, right? So it's happening. I mean, artificial intelligence is happening, autonomous systems, it's happening, and it's going to be huge and impactful, and that keeps me awake. I have to say, the idea of technology that is getting to a level of independence from human beings that we probably cannot even imagine. There are great opportunities, there are probably great risks also, so that's really something that we should put some effort into. What I feel is very interesting to make that as specific as it gets, and what we try to achieve with the company is that cities can learn from each other, right? So you want that the machine learns itself, but how great would it be that one city can learn from the other city how well or bad a transportation system works, so that you have an interconnection of various different local environments that are so much connected that you don't have to do it in Barcelona and then in Paris and then in New York and have to try it out all the time, but that you can really connect these various platforms. And this is something, together, of course, with a sophisticated technology behind it that is capable of such learning capabilities, learning technology. That was a lot of buzzwords. That is something that fascinates us.
Well, let's put it like this: I already work in a startup that's where that will be a trend. I don't know. I think it's hyped. If you think about drones and how they might be used in the future, but from my perspective, working with drones for more than 6 years all around the world, we just think it's a tool that's coming up. And I joined this industry because we had the experience working with them, and that we are actually thinking that they will make a difference. But to add to your statement, is that I see more and more connections between all trends that are out there. And I also think that is, some of them are hyped, but to turn the trend into a business, we have to get to know the workflow that's in our industry itself. How do we use these tools to actually create something? How do people work with the technology that exists out there, and how can you build a business upon that? And Henry already said, we pitched to him, and he was like, okay, it's nice, but where's the business model? It's not just because you can do it, it's how do you make a valuable business out of it. And I think there's a great environment to start in blockchain, in artificial intelligence, and actually we just hired an artificial intelligence developer who was into robotics, and then he said, okay, I like working with, and like I was fascinated by the drone stuff you're doing, and they're actually interoperable, so that's a cool thing that's happening.
Thank you. Yes, we have about 5,300 stations, train stations. We've got 30,000 shifts. We've got thousands of ticket machines, clocks, everything. And what do all these things have in common? They don't have sensors, most of them. They don't produce this data. They cannot speak together. And for me, that's one of the things from my perspective from Deutsche Bahn. We need more sensors. I don't understand why we don't produce these tracks with sensors. I think there's a lot of there are a lot of good ideas that need to be solved or created to help us. Yeah, but on the other hand, we began to put sensors on, and sensors. It's not easy to find sensors which are solid, which produces valuable data on tracks, for example. So, but we started to survey our shifts. We put sensors on our escalators and our elevators, and we put it on an open API so everyone can check the status. But it's still the beginning, and we have a lot of infrastructure. That's my beginning, but it's only infrastructure, and the real work is to get this digitized.
So, first of all, what I say, I totally agree with the singularity statement. I think that's definitely coming very soon. And actually, to continue the bullshit bingo, as you said, I think a lot of that will come through deep learning and AI technologies. So one very remarkable breakthrough that I think that is really very pivotal in all the developments is that in the last 2 years, for the first time, computers beat humans at computer vision, right? So I think one thing that's really crazy is you see that there's kind of an Moore's law of AI that every year the error rate of AI for image recognition, voice recognition gets about 50% less. And that means if we're looking 5 years in the future, you know how this exponentially works, then Microsoft announced that they now have superhuman speech recognition capabilities in the lab, right? And let me give you a practical example what we do, or other cases that I've seen to get a little bit away from the bullshit bingo and see if you can understand what we're doing. We're not using it just for the sake of using AI technology. So one problem we have in our navigation systems is that maps are continuously outdated, right? So average every year 15% of the street network changes. So this means even the best navigation system which you can get right now is wrong in 15% of the cases. So what we did is we gave cameras to taxi drivers, stick them in the car. The camera is filming while he's driving, and he's automatically on the device saying how many lanes it has, which signs are there. He's checking it against this local database, and if it says there's a change, it uploads it to our server. We edit it in OpenStreetMap, right? And for the prototype, we had 20 people sitting in our office checking these videos. And what they were doing is they were training our deep learning network to recognize all of that stuff. And we're like at a point now where it's said exactly like this, where basically our image recognition network is at superhuman capabilities. So now suddenly the AI algorithms is smarter than the humans looking at it. And there's like signs that I couldn't recognize because my eyes are not that good. I cannot see like in far a sign. And now our image algorithms can like recognize a sign before the humans can recognize it. And I think this is like transformational, right? And this is like when you ask like about a startup background, right? Like right now, there's huge amounts of geodata. Like look at like satellite data, right? There's like startups who are organizing in which area you can like plant a field well, because you now can go through terabytes of data, which would be, with humans never been possible. And that's kind of things that like AI is enabling you now, that if you look about it like, I mean, or in your drones, right? I mean, your drone flies around, generates a huge amount of data. You cannot hire for every drone one operator who's looking at the data, but now you can have a drone flying around, analyze the data automatically. I mean, look at security applications, right? I mean, definitely like 1984, full surveillance is coming, right? I mean, you can look at every single camera in the world and you can process where somebody is like leaving a suitcase behind. I mean, is this good or bad? I don't know, but for sure it's going to happen.
Okay, it seems we have some fans of Ray Kurzweil here. I mean, to finalize that up, I mean, we have discussed about the fuel, we have discussed about the engine, a lot of great insights about technology. As we know, every journey is boring if you don't have a co-driver with you. So my basically last question in this round, before we opening the Q&A to the audience is, if here and now you would have time and you would endless resources of money, which person you would invite to have a, let's say, a startup with you kicked off, maybe at best a prominent one, and why?
I mean, I'm lucky I had the perfect co-founder, was like much more like experienced than I was. So he founded, before we founded Scobler, he founded like Navigon, which was a very successful navigation company in Germany. And we did Scobler together. So I think like Peter, with whom I founded that, is the perfect co-founder. So I wouldn't want to have anybody else.
I wouldn't kick out none of our startups, even those we kicked out, because it's an experience to get the even if you fail, it's a good experience. I think if you fast fail,
Tom, new start with whom?
Yeah, well, if I look back to the early days, my co-founder and myself, we decided to found a tech company, and I don't know if you have realized or not yet, probably you have, I'm not a tech guy, he is not, so founding a tech company with zero knowledge a couple of years ago made us find more people, right? So a CTO first, and then a team that we invited to join the ride. And that will be my strongest advice, my strongest recommendation. It's really important that you have a full flavor of people around you. It's great that you are two, it's better than just one, but you really have to have a group of people that you can rely on, because we often use this picture of a sailing ship, you know, that is out there at the Atlantic. You need to have a crew of more than two. And I feel privileged with the ones we have. And I very much invite others to join this ride also, because we are hiring, so let's have even a larger crew on board.
I'm in the startup ecosystem for about 15 years now, and I had good and bad experiences with co-founders. So I started with bad, and then was good. So that's a good order, by the way. And so for the future, what I learned is, when I meet good people on the way, either be it my co-founders or be it my team members, and we work together very well, I try to stick with them. So even if I might change my role and go to a new company, I try my very best to convince them to come with me. So either they join my new company or a new company we are invested in. And this rule I applied for the past 15 years. And this leads to a situation right now that in my company and in the companies we are invested in, there are a lot of people we worked with in the past. And this gives these companies a very good stability and a very good performance as well. And that's why I would not start with any new co-founder I don't know, because I want to work with the people first and then start a common journey afterwards.
Yeah, and I like to put it like this: as when you want to start a company, you don't really know if it's the right person or not. You'll find out in the process. What I learned, or what I would like to do when you ask the question unlimited resources, I would probably work, would like to work with a lot of young people right out of university, or even if they say, okay, I quit, I drop out, and I want to do business, I want to start a business, because they have a lot of ambition, and I think they put the drive on you, and you can learn a lot from young people who just have an idea what they want to achieve, but they don't know how. And I think this is a thing I like to work with unlimited resources, where you have a lot of time to experience, that you grow on the project, that you grow in the challenges that you face, and that's what I would like to do.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I think that was a great ride into some startup journey all together with my guests. I would now open actually the round for questions. I think maybe just a quick survey. Who's actually now working for a startup or plans to work for a startup? Oh, it's quite decent, yeah. Do you have any kind of remarks, questions to the guests here? I mean, you can shout it, I will translate it into the mic, it's maybe more convenient. So we have answered all of you. Okay, yeah.
I was wondering, a lot has been said about open data, but what about open innovation in a wider sense? I was wondering, when you were asking about... Thank you. I was asking about open innovation in a wider sense, not only open data. I was wondering when you were asked about what's special about Berlin, it has not been mentioned that there is cooperation with universities and there is a lot of cooperation between companies. So isn't that an important factor, either here in Berlin or in general?
Someone who want to? Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, we all forgot that, of course. It's a very important factor. So for us, for example, in this space we operate our company in, all of our, let's say, portfolio companies are also in, but we also have a part of this space available for other startups that join our space. And the reason is that we like to exchange with others, even if you're not invested in them, especially if you're not invested in them, because then we know for sure that they tell us the truth, because they don't have to lie to us. So, and that's something which we value a lot. The university ecosystem is okay in Berlin. There are others. I mean, Berlin does not produce the most entrepreneurs, that's for sure. I mean, if you look around, Zalando and other companies have been founded by WHU students, apps students. Yeah? And it's not only due to Rocket Internet, it's also due to other companies that help these students. So this is something where the universities in Berlin can be a little bit stronger, maybe even with more technical founders, because the others are more business founders. Yeah? And also from the government infrastructure, I mean, there are tons of opportunities to get money from Berlin itself. Unfortunately, it's really difficult to get access to it, but once you make it, that's really a big help for most startups.
Yeah, I also think we work a lot with universities. We offer a lot for the students who just want to take a look at the economy. We do free workshops with the authorities where we spend literally days trying to teach them what's important about the ecosystem and how you integrate drones into society safely, and also with all the issues that go along with them. So I think innovation is often driven out from people that are right out of university, young people who have visions and ideas. And what we like to do is take these and spread it across also with different companies, even if we don't have a business relationship, just to exchange it. And I also think this is very important, like Henry said, to learn from different industries what you can adopt and how you take a closer look at this. And I think also giving stuff away for free is the best you can do for your business development in general.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Okay.
So I have a question about the way that this geo-IT world is going into other industries. You guys are all somewhere in this intelligent infrastructure field, in the navigation field, of course, it's the navigation conference. But how do you feel about geo component becoming mainstream, and where do you think that this mainstream event will at most take place? In which industries you think that it has the most potential for the next years?
Who wants? Philip?
I mean, I think it's very hard to judge in which industry it won't have a key factor, right? So let me give you another example, right? I mean, Facebook for advertising, right? They're using a lot of the location components in order to target you very precisely, right? So one of the strongest drivers of growth for Facebook, and they've said so publicly in the next years, is really by targeting ads better and using location as a key factor to that, right? So that will be one of their key revenue drivers, and that will be equally valid for all the internet companies who are funded by advertisements. So this will be Facebook, Google. They will all heavily go into the location space to really ultimately close the funnel, right? From targeting everybody with a McDonald's ad to target you based on your specific data, as well as target on the location that you are, and then on the context that you are, where you're traveling and so on. I just in the morning on your way to work, then I might advertise you to buy coffee and stuff like that. So I think this is advertisement is one component where location will have a massive influence, and I'm quite involved in that because Telenav has also a subsidiary in location-based advertisement, so that's why I'm following that space quite intensely, and I know that a lot of people will go into that. Then I think all the automotive industry, which we said is, I think they're just will completely transform that, right? And the interesting thing is somebody said that the automotive industry being transformed by self-driving cars is very interesting, but think about the secondary industries. It's much more interesting because everybody thinks about the Uber and so on. That's where the $50 billion plus company is. But think about the pizza delivery service. Think about what happens when sending stuff from A to B gets as cheap as sending an IP package. So I think that's where I would put my money in. I wouldn't build another Uber, but I would build a company that builds a business model on assuming that transportation as a service will be available at 10% of the cost now. So that's where I would put to answer your question, assume that the cost of going from A to B drops by 90% with autonomous vehicles. And this is things again, all kinds of delivery services, all kinds of other service businesses that require you to go from A to B. I think that's where a huge amount of money is, and there's almost no investment going yet.
I'd like to add, geo-IT already has become mainstream, and we most of the time don't even realize it, because it's just like I said, it's a tool we all use. If you go to Google Maps, if you take your navigation systems, if you order a pizza, if you get a parcel delivery and you look up online, where is it? When is it arriving? And like I said earlier, we will answer more questions with geo-IT. It's not just where's the address, it's also how do we do it? How is food that we use, how is it produced? What's the supply chain behind it? Where is it coming from? And how do we actually deal with that? So I think there's a lot of questions you can actually solve with it, and it's not put up front. That's not the business you're in, but it's just a delight or an enhancement for everything that's out there. And if you take a look at all the products that are, if you book a hotel, for example, and you see actually where the hotel is. And another question that you can actually ask is, how do we deliver the geo-IT to people who are not into maps? If you go to the Middle East, if you go to Central Asia and you show people a map, they don't know what it is because they navigate in a totally different environment. They navigate how they see it. And I think this is also a challenge for geo-IT, how to navigate people who are not into maps at all, who can't read a map. And these are actually 500 million people all around the world who've never seen a map at this point in time. So this is also a question I think geo-IT can solve with different solutions.
Yeah, maybe giving also a perspective of another industry which belongs to the top 5 into the world, which is healthcare. When you consider that a normal person, and actually, I mean, each of our modern societies get older and older, which you know, brings a new wave of challenges in there. And I just recently talked with someone also working in there. They said, it takes up to the first 6 minutes after heart attack, it's okay, because this is something you can handle easily. Afterwards, it becomes pretty critical, so almost many people die because it simply takes too long. When you take into consideration, that we have cities full of traffic jam or whatever, having first rescue is difficult. Considering that people having some kind of wearable and actually having some kind of drones or whatever, instant delivering help, with also you said, I mean, almost robots which are doing the job. I mean, this is not just a fantastic vision, this is something actually many companies working on, especially in Japan, where robotics is way more accepted in society than here in Europe. I mean, this is, for example, a trend that you cannot stop, and geo-IT plays a vital role. It's 4D data, right? It's where you are, which time, and how long it takes to get there. And I mean, as you know, health is also a very profitable business. So, I mean, they will invest there a lot, yeah. Any other question? Yeah. Okay, as Roland gently reminded me, there's nothing better after a startup session to announce that we have the perfect liquid, which is beer, to finish this evening. So everyone here is welcome to have a Geo beer with us. So I think you just follow Roland with the bottle. He will be the leader of the pack. For the rest of you, thank you for joining that session. Thank you for staying that long for the first day of Wherecamp. And I hope we see us again refreshed tomorrow morning to the second track of Wherecamp Berlin 2016. Thank you.